Turned on the TV and it was 3 minutes into the debate. I watched 3 minutes, I took 2 gummies and I started listening to country music.
People say that you were an instrumental part in persuading Biden to stand down.
I hated every moment, but I just didn't think I had another choice, honestly. It might have been the single most painful thing I've ever done in my life. And we lost by 1.5 points. They would rather lose on principle than have to compromise and win an election. And there's a word for these people, it is idiotic.
We are just getting started.
Kind of weird, but Trump being elected, it in some ways kind of freed me. I cannot wait to get in the morning and just kick the living crap out of Donald Trump.
It's the economy, stupid. James Carville's typically blunt explanation of US voter priorities will be forever associated with the election of President Bill Clinton. But Carville's prolific record of wisdom and insults runs far deeper than that. He's been a top strategist and a leading influence on the Democratic Party for decades. Now he co-hosts a weekly podcast, Politics War Room, is the subject of a CNN documentary, Winning is Everything, Stupid. And now, for the first time, actually, I'm pleased to say James Carville is not only going uncensored, but I'm interviewing you, James, for the first time. And I found that an extraordinary fact, given our parallel lives.
Well, I'm the only person you get stupid in twice in the introduction, so.
Well, hopefully.
I was going to
say, hopefully you don't use it a third time at the end of the interview.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. I've done a lot of stupid things too. So.
Well, look, it's great to finally interview. It's great to have you on Uncensored.
Thank you.
I was really struck by a few things you said recently. I'm going to come to what you said about the Trump administration potentially collapsing within 30 days. But first, I just want to focus, first of all, on where the Democrats are, because you thought that Kamala Harris would win. You're actually I think you've got 26 elections you've called right. You've called 6 wrongly. 2 of those 6 were Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. Be honest with me now. Did you really think Kamala Harris was going to win, or did you hope she was going to win?
Well, you know, I'm a Catholic, and we do a thing called an examination of conscience. And my reasons were as follows. The polling was close. It turned out the polling was accurate. It was a very close election. I thought a combination of her having more money, which she did, better field organization, which I don't count for a lot, but I said, you know, might get you over the top. Had considerably more popular surrogates out there, but they were used correctly is something to revisit. And I honestly thought that would carry over the top. But where my error was, people wanted something different, and she resolutely refused to give them anything different. You know, remember the famous View question, what would you do different than Biden? He said, well, I can't think of anything. That might have been the worst answer I've heard by a presidential candidate in a long time. Having said that, Piers, I admit I was wrong, but I point out to people, before you start spiking the ball, we played our 7th-string quarterback in the Super Bowl, and we lost by 1.5 points. Can you imagine what happened if we played our 3rd-string quarterback?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would. To me, it was very interesting to watch it all play out. Primarily from the moment that Joe Biden gave that debate, and it became crystal clear to Americans who were watching in large numbers that all the rumor mill that had been dismissed largely by the mainstream media, that Biden was somehow cognitively impaired, he wasn't up for the job, etc., that all those rumors that had been roundly denied by the Democratic establishment actually were laid bare as being a cold, hard reality. Where were you when that debate happened, and what were you thinking as it took place?
No, exactly where I was. I was in Aspen, Colorado, with Tina Brown's Aspen Ideas group. And I went back to the Jerome Hotel, and I turned on the TV, and it was 3 minutes into the debate. I watched 3 minutes, I took 2 gummies, and I started listening to country music because I knew this thing was not going well at all.
No.
It was too painful to watch, but I can show you that to this day I could walk back to the room I was in the hotel. And I texted the director of the documentary, and I told him I'm taking 2 gummies and watching country music. This is too brutal for me to watch.
Did you know in that moment, James, did you know in that moment that he was not going to be the candidate come the election?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was pretty evident. You know, there's a new book coming out. Read it about what people do and when did they know it. I don't know. I called on President Biden not to run for re-election even earlier than May of 2023. I think he's one of the more consequential presidents we've ever had, frankly. And it was might have been the single most painful thing I've ever done in my life. I cannot wait to get in the morning and just kick the living crap out of Donald Trump. It just gives me joy, pleasure. It brings a smile to my face. I hate it every moment, but I just didn't think I had another choice, honestly. And so that's where I am. It's kind of weird, but Trump being elected, in some ways, kind of freed me.
I mean, people say that you were an instrumental part in persuading Biden to stand down. It's pretty clear that he didn't want to do that. Is it true that you were one of the leading drivers for him to stand down? Did you talk to him yourself?
No. Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, and I'm positive as a result of people in the caucus said, we can't do this. We're going to get slaughtered. And they went to the White House. Their message, like you would expect, was not particularly well received. And I'm quoting publicly. And President Trump tells which has got to be the title of a book, okay? He says that Mike Donlan's polling says we can win. She said, get Donlan on the phone. I mean, if that woman might be the toughest, most courageous person I've ever been around in my life. I mean, I don't love her. I love her, and I'm totally intimidated by her. I just think she's just wonderful human being. But I think that was when, it was the equivalent when Barry Goldwater went down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing I would fault to Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, they're both friends of mine, what took you so long?
Right.
Not that you did it, but, we should have done it, ifs and buts. But it was clear after that debate. I was in a room with 60 Democratic donors that morning, and it was just brutal. And you could see that and I said, just call and say, no mas, no more money. That's it. So you do something different, we're not going to fund this disaster. And I think had a part in it. Yes, when Hakeem or Schumer would call these donors, wanting money, and they said, no, I'm not giving you any money. I think that gets people's attention, and I did play a role in that. Yes.
I don't always pick the healthiest food options. I'm sure you don't either. We're all human and we're all busy. That's why doctors created Field of Greens. One delicious glass of Field of Greens is like nutritional armor for your body. Each fruit and vegetable in this drink was selected by a doctor for specific health benefit. There's a heart health group, lungs and kidney groups, metabolism. It's all very complicated, but not with Field of Greens because it's all in there. It gives me energy, but it also gives me the confidence that I can be traveling or, shock horror, enjoying a sneaky burger, and I'll still be getting all the nutrition my body needs daily. Only Field of Greens makes you the better health promise. Your doctor will notice your improved health, or you'll get your money back. We've teamed up to give you a 20% discount on your first order. Just use promo code PIERS at brickhousenutrition.com/PIERS. That's code PIERS at brickhousenutrition.com/PIERS. The second phase was obviously the sort of coronation of Kamala Harris without any rivals really to try and see off first. With hindsight, or maybe you felt it at the time, but was that a smart move? I mean, obviously it didn't work out well, but would it not have been better, as I was saying at the time, to just go through the convention and actually have a few people put their hat in the ring?
So, you're right. I said in the New York Times that Harris is going to win. I was wrong. If you look at July the 7th of 2024, I said that he's going to drop out. He should. And Presidents Clinton and Obama should host 4 regional town halls and invite 6 candidates and open the process up. Had we done that, And this is there is more talent when people say the Democrats are dead, but they don't have anybody. That's insane. There is more political talent currently in the Democratic Party than any party I've seen in my lifetime. Now, people don't know about it because we don't put them front and center. And that's what I was driving for. So could you imagine if you'd have had President Obama, President Clinton in, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, having a town hall with 6 candidates? Could you imagine if you'd have gone to the convention and no one would have secured the people would watch, they'd be interested.
Of course.
It'd be a storyline, all right? You got to create events for people. For people like you to cover, you would be going crazy. You'd be, oh my God, we got this person and that person, and look what's going on here. And the New Mexico Democratic Caucus is meeting. We're waiting to see if they're unified behind blah, 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 blah. It's so easy to do. And we were just by the time, so I wrote that on July 7th. He drops out on July 21st. I think the convention starts somewhere around August 16th. Don't hold me to the exact date, but I'm not very far. Well, in that time, they had to pick a vice president. They had to write a speech. They had to rearrange things. And so Harris gets Joe Biden's staff, keeps the headquarters in Wilmington, keeps the furniture, the artwork, and doesn't even have her own people. And when you run, you got to have your own people. And most of them were lobbyists, so they were scared to run on anything popular, like, say, raising the minimum wage or taxing people with high incomes and using that money to help young people buy a house or rent a house. They said, well, that would look anti-business. Oh, my God. But my criticism, actually, is they should have run further to the economic left than they did.
Really? So that's interesting, because it struck me one of the problems Kamala Harris had was a bit like with Hillary Clinton, actually, I felt, was that, and she played a very Hillary playbook in the end. She just got a lot of famous people to go on stage with her and all that kind of stuff. But if you'd taken 100 Americans outside a subway station in all the major cities and said, give me 3 things that Kamala Harris stands for, same with Hillary, I don't think they could have answered that. Whereas Trump, for all his faults, is a supreme marketer. He knows how to convey message better than any politician I've seen in modern times. It may not be a message you like, but he's a brilliant marketer. I felt, you touched on it there, that Kamala, they couldn't sell this. But part of it was her own inability to sell herself and to sell a message of anything for America. I still don't really know what she was planning for her America. As you say, she went on The View and said she wouldn't do anything different to Biden, but that's not a new, refreshing, exciting message. That's more of the same, folks.
Suppose you just said, America needs a raise, I'm going to give them one.
Right.
We're going to raise the minimum wage to $14.25 an hour.
Right.
People need, young people are struggling in this economy, so we're going to ask old people to throw a shekel or two in the pot and try to help them out. Okay, you do that, then some people say, well, she's there. I mean, there's something coming back, and you're correct. If you said Trump, you would say the southern border, tariffs, America first, or something. But you did have that association. That's why in the 92 campaign, remember, we had 3 things on a whiteboard. You couldn't go beyond those 3. And 14 total words. But that is a astute observation on your part, and unfortunately, there's much truth to it.
The president, obviously Trump, it struck me he benefited himself from a few things. One, the assassination attempt, where obviously he was nearly killed, and he reacted in a way that was surprising, I think, even to those who knew him well. The show of defiance, the fight, the arm raised, I think was a very powerful symbol for him, and certainly would have been very, I think, influential in a lot of American minds, even if they didn't like him. They thought, you know what, this guy, he's a fighter. He showed courage literally under fire. Secondly, and I think you may question this, but what they've called the lawfare campaign against Trump, it wasn't so much the more serious stuff against him. It was the fact the first thing they took him to court over was such a pathetically trivial case, Stormy Daniels, and shuffling a bit of paperwork about a one-night stand 18 years before. For that to be the first time any American president had been taken through a criminal court and to then convict him over it, I felt was a catastrophic strategic failure. What was your view of that?
Well, let me take what happened. You're right. The Butler event, he showed real strength there, and was kind of what he was. So he had that. We had a catastrophic debate. We had a catastrophic nominating process. We nominated a person who actually turned out to be a little bit better candidate than I thought, which, I wouldn't think he's going to be that much, who actually did pay for taxpayer-funded transition surgery for prisoners, okay? Right. If you asked me to come up with something more unpopular than that, right, I'd say, Piers, you got to give me about 30 seconds, all right? Yeah. And we lost by 1.5 points. Right? Anybody else, I could tell you 5 people that would have won this election easily, even under those circumstances. It's like if the country wants something different, tell them you're going to give them something different. I tell them, and it's not disloyal. And people say, well, she's a very loyal person. I agree. Loyal to who?
Right.
If you're loyal to Biden, are you loyal to the party? Are you loyal to the voters? Are you loyal? I mean, when you say someone is loyal, okay, who are you loyal to? For what reason? And, it's in the title. There's a lot of Democrats. I can't believe these people exist, but I can assure you they do. They would rather lose on principle than have to compromise and win an election. And there's a word for these people. It is idiotic.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I've seen you say, you wrote in the New York Times after the election, we lost, it was, it is, and always will be the economy stupid. I don't dispute for a moment that the cost of living crisis raging through America at the time of the election and still going on now was obviously the key factor. But I would also say that the immigration issue was a huge factor. And I also think, although many Democrats want to try and downplay it, but you just touched on it there, one of the most successful ads in modern political history was Kamala's for they, them, Trump's for you. And I do think the whole woke stuff collectively, as Trump put it, a kind of abrogation of common sense, that also resonated hard with people. That they did actually think these things, like transgender athletes in women's sport, for example, which Kamala supported.
Yeah, you know what I say about that? We should say, if you're concerned about the state track meet, please do something about it. We have an athletic association that can do it. But if you're concerned with that, or you are concerned about bathroom stalls, then hang out in bathrooms. It is not of a concern to me. There are people that can deal with this. I'm worried about the cost of living. I'm worried about access to health care.
But I think, if you don't mind me saying, but James, I would dispute that. A lot of Democrats have tried to say to me, it didn't really matter, the trans stuff and the woke stuff. And I keep saying, I think it matters more than you think. That when Trump positioned himself as the voice of common sense, and you had a party led by Joe Biden and Kamala, who both thought it's fine for biological men to compete in women's sport, for example, that actually that was more powerful than people realized in the third tier of why they voted. Economy 1, immigration 2, woke mind virus 3, supported by Kamala Harris. The IRS is the biggest collection agency in the world, and with April the 15th now fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. Enforcement has ramped up in 2025, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. The smart move is to get ahead, but never contact the IRS alone. Let the experts at Tax Network USA handle this for you. Why? Well, not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. They have proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. You can talk to one of our strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder. Protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Piers. That's Piers. April 15th is upon us. Act now before the IRS does it first. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Piers.
There's I can't think of a Democrat, I doubt if you can too, that has spoken out more against identitarian politics, more against faculty lounge, goofy academic language than I have. So we went through that phase. We lost the election. So the answer of the identitarian left is, well, it didn't matter because no one ran on it, famously by Jon Stewart. Oh, look, somebody did run on it. See, in politics, the other side gets to play.
Correct.
If you're in comedy and you tell a bad joke, you just throw it away. In politics, all that. And Harris was for taxpayer transition surgery for prisoners, okay? I researched myself. That's not my number one thing. Honestly, I don't think about it that much. In terms of the border, all of that is because Biden listened to the idiotic far left. And by the time that he left office, the border was a very orderly place. A lot of good it did us, but it's really true if you look at the crossing statistics. Every person in history that has listened, not just to the far left in the United States, but anybody in the West that pays attention to the far left has lived to regret it. These people have never been right about a single thing.
Absolutely.
Nothing.
You're completely right.
And they keep running their mouths. And I'm reading this book and you should get this guy, Why Nothing Works. And the only thing progressive ever successfully killed is progress.
Right.
That's it.
Which is very ironic.
Signature achievement. Yeah, it is. And I consider myself very much a liberal Democrat. People ask me how does it feel to be a moderate. I don't know, because I'm not. I'm very liberal. I believe we ought to use opportunity to help people. We should never discriminate anybody. I even believe that there are certain groups who've been historically left out that we ought to give more of a helping hand to. I'm completely fine with that. But the idea that we were going to change dictionaries, we're going to change the world by changing dictionaries is historically stupid, to put it mildly.
I mean, I thought it was very interesting that, look, your views are echoed by Bill Maher. I would position myself, actually, historically, with my own political views, pretty similar to you guys. Joe Rogan was certainly in that camp. Elon Musk was in that camp. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK. A lot of the people now in this cabinet around Trump were people who would have identified as Democrats previously. And it seemed to me that the Democrats, as they moved far left and into this more so-called progressive world, they lost a lot of people who thought this lacked any common sense.
Yeah, I don't even know if I guess it's leftist. It's just idiotic.
Yeah.
Okay, there are principles, I think, that a lot of people who, like myself, would describe themselves as liberal. There are principles that we tend to share. We tend to not look at people as individuals, not part of a larger group. We tend to want to help people who are trying to make it as opposed to people that have it made. That kind of stuff, okay? We believe you build things and do things. And it was just a very loud part of the party that really came to rise a little bit more after the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah.
And they thought that had given them license to be stupid. And Piers, you remember the German communists in the streets of Berlin were marching the worse the better. After Hitler, us. Yeah, really? The piano war.
Right.
I mean, that's how historically dumb these people have been. Yeah, it was how it's getting worse. And guess what? You're getting shot.
Right.
And that's the typical reaction of the Western left.
Yeah. Let's talk about Trump for a moment. You said...
Now, remember, okay, I got to go back because you remember the longest suicide note in history?
Go on.
Michael Foote.
Oh, yeah.
He was a real lefty.
Yeah, he was. He was. And actually, no real lefty has ever become British Prime Minister, with the possible exception of Sir Keir Starmer, who's now pivoted extremely fast to a more centrist position, a more sort of Blairite position, but certainly used to be happy to identify as progressive left. So it's interesting. He's probably the most left-wing prime minister we've ever had, actually. Let me just talk to you about Trump, because you said
Clement Attlee was pretty successful, and he wasn't he's pretty far left.
No, that's true.
Some people think maybe the best prime minister in British history.
Yeah, you could argue Attlee,
but he wasn't crazy. But he was pretty, I think in a pretty good way.
Yeah, yeah. I think Attlee was a great prime minister. Let's talk about Trump for a moment. You said last week that you think the Trump administration, you're talking to Dan Abrams on his podcast, the Dan Abrams Show.
Right.
You think the Trump administration will collapse within 30 days? Just summarise, for those who didn't watch the podcast, summarise why you think that's going to happen.
Okay, that very fair question. Okay, first of all, it started as the lowest approval of any president at the beginning. In 30 days, it has deteriorated, all right? Consumer confidence in the United States came in at the lowest it's been in 4 years. Inflation is back in ways you can't believe it, and particularly eggs. And people say, well, no, but they had bird flu. Profits of egg companies have never been higher than they are today. You have an inverted yield curve. Okay, this is kind of inside talk that I don't completely understand, but I am told it is the single best predictor of a coming recession that there is. And it kind of makes sense when you don't have much faith in the future when you take a 3-year bond as opposed to a 3-month, whatever it is. But it's no expression of anything in the future. Everywhere, and his poll numbers are going down right now. His plan to cut Medicaid and give $4.5 trillion to mostly wealthy people is massively unpopular. And this is not going to do anything but get worse. Sarah Longwell, who does, I think, probably, no way to prove this, more focus groups than any person in American public opinion, says there's already buyer's remorse from Trump voters. We're 33 days anywhere into this. The stock market has been down since he's been in. Inflation has been up. I don't see it. I see it continuing.
But there's also been, though, I mean, on the counter side, there's also been massive public support for the DOGE stuff that he's doing with Elon Musk. I mean, most Americans like them finding all this waste.
Elon, have you seen? I'm fine. Who's for waste? What have they found? That 100,000 condoms to Gaza? Come on, man. Saying that federal spending has gone up since Trump has taken office. And the people like the idea of getting rid of government inefficiency. Sure they do. Do people like the idea of cutting the CDC or the NIH or customs enforcement or anything like that? Of course they don't. And they're making a huge miscalculation. They think that federal employees are a bunch of lazy dolts. There's no such thing. There are some highly educated, highly clever people, and we're getting ready to find out that. You watch the Virginia governor's race in November. It's going to be like power slapping. They're going to get hit so hard.
What do you think of Elon Musk? Is he a force for good or not?
Well, first of all, he said, Walter Isaacson, who's a very good friend of mine, who's a fellow New Orleanian, I asked him one time, I said, what's the main thing about Musk I need to know? And he said, he's a hell of an engineer.
Right.
And apparently, by any account, he's a hell of an engineer. I don't see any evidence that rifling through federal computers, sending people, laying people off, is A, going to save a whole lot of money, and B, has any chance whatsoever of being popular over any period of time. Now, if he can come up with an algorithm that automatically saves the federal government $1.5 trillion, then great. But he's not going to come up with that, because you need to be honest with people. The government of the United States is a giant insurance company that has an army and services its own debt in a very efficient way. So once you take out insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, once you take out defense, once you take out debt service, you could find something, I'm sure, and maybe you could improve federal contracting, and maybe you could improve the bid process. I don't know that you can. The guy's got $400 billion, but I haven't seen anything yet.
On just quick, two last subjects, but first of all, the Ukraine situation.
Sure.
I mean, I'd sort of couple them with Israel Hamas, because you're seeing Trump behaving in what many think is a very erratic way, but that his calculating business brain may have told him if he goes to the extremities with both the Ukraine situation and Israel and Gaza, that it may lead to people getting around a table and doing a deal. And if he ends up bringing peace to both places, he ends up with the Nobel Peace Prize, and it's a good move for Trump. I mean, what do you think of where we are with this? If it does end up with peace in both Gaza and in Ukraine, would you end up applauding him or not?
I mean, first of all, if this happened and that happened and this happened, et cetera, okay. So letting Putin win is going to get you the Nobel Prize? Letting a massive kleptocrat dictator, okay, invade a country that was holding elections that I've been to Ukraine 5 times. So we're going to give the Nobel Peace Prize to Putin. All right. Secondly, if somehow or another, by the way, any peace that they're talking about in the Middle East does not include the Palestinians. You got to understand that. It's the Saudis and everybody else in there, and they're going to decide the Palestinian future without Palestinian input. Oh, come on, give me a break. But yeah, if he walked across the Mississippi River, all right, and turned water into gold, we should give him a prize. I got news for you. He's not going to do it, okay? He's not going to do it, and we're not going to give him a Nobel Prize. Look at Mark Levin, who might be the most right-wing guy I've ever seen. I kind of listen to conservative radio. Mark Levin says people like James Carville hate America. They wake up every morning, and they try to think about how they can hurt America. Mark Levin says, I'm done with this Putin-Ukraine stuff. What normal person? I mean, I read everything Tim Snyder writes, Ann Applebaum. They know exactly what's going on. And you're not going to get a Nobel Prize dealing with a kleptocrat who hauls off and invades peaceful countries. It's not going to happen.
Let me end with your spat with Stephen A. Smith, which was highly entertaining to watch from the sidelines, I must say. Basically, he's dipped his toes into politics. Said he may run as a Democrat. You told him to stop running your effing mouth off about politics, saying he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. And Stephen A. Smith hit back by saying this.
But I do have to ask you a question, Mr. James Carville, albeit rhetorically. You do know that you're talking to a voter, right? Could that be one of the reasons why y'all lost? Just a thought. Because you sound like one of those old curmudgeons that want things to stay or be the way that they used to be, and you're resentful, harboring an abundance of animosity because you're not being heard. That's not Stephen A. Smith's fault, sir. That's that damn Democratic Party that I was talking about.
Well, I'll let the old curmudgeon have the last word.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess was I the one that wanted someone different than Biden to run to get a younger person in there? I think so. But look, Stephen A. Smith I said this in a video. When I first saw him, I said, this guy can't last. I mean, he's just coming in too hot. And he grew on people, and he grew on me in the sports analysis. He does not know how, he might know something about a lot of things, and anybody can voice an opinion on politics. Actually, a lot of the stuff he did that he and I agreed on, he was not for Biden running either. What he can't do is evaluate talent. That's the problem. He cannot draft. He doesn't know who can hit a baseball and who can't. He doesn't know who can kick a football and who can't. And when he says that there was no talent in the party, so he may have to run himself, man, if you ever got on a track with 5 or 6 or 7 of these Democrats, you would be dizzy. They'd run so many circles around you.
Well, you say
and
that.
I was trying.
Yeah, but hang on. You say that, and I would question that, James, because the reality is, you would have said exactly the same thing. I don't know, actually. You can correct me, but I assume when Donald Trump first said he was going to run against Hillary Clinton, you would have dismissed him in the same way.
You know, that's a great thing. You thought Hillary was going, so you can't have an opinion. You thought that's the number one thing we go back to. Well, you thought I'm not a very good. I don't. By the way, I was 26-6 on Tony Conhauser publicly against the spread. All right, that's so. You and Piers Morgan and Stephen Smith said, well, you were wrong 6 times. We're not going to talk about the 26 times you were right.
I actually gave you credit earlier. Okay, I gave you credit earlier for being right 26 times. But my point about Hillary Clinton was Donald Trump was not a conventional politician, nor is Stephen A. Smith. Could it be that the criticism that he's making about you is that actually the game has changed and you now, as Trump has proven twice, you can actually win the White House by being completely antithetical to normal political behavior?
Okay. All right, let me give you a very rational thing. If you think that political talent, that the ability to communicate, the ability to frame an issue, the ability to draw a contrast, okay, the ability to speak eloquently to people in a language they understand is out of fashion, is old-fashioned, his time is past, then stamp the expiration date on me. Please do. But if you think that these qualities are essential to being successful in politics, then I have not expired. And I see people that have enormous potential currently in senior positions in a Democratic Party. And that's what I was trying to do in early July of 2024. Let's get these people out there and let people see them. Because the image of this party right now is we're urban and we're old. And, you know, we do a pretty good job of validating that impression of people. But I don't think there's anything new in the ability to communicate, and they probably won't be for the long-term future.
Final question. Very quick answer. Final question. Give me one name from the Democrat ranks that has the potential to be the person you're talking about.
So I'm going to slip and slide here, and I'm going to equivocate in things you hate. I used to give 5 or 6, and then somebody would call and say, why didn't you mention me? But if you look across at some of the governors we have, you look across even some of the senators we have, and you watch them communicate, I mean, these people are really good. I'll give you one name, but you wouldn't think about it. He's hardly the only one. Chris Murphy. Chris is a stunning communicator, but I can't sit here and tell you that there are not 6 other people that are just as good, but because everybody wants a name, I'll give you one name, but there's a gazillion other. That's why, so Piers, what you should do is say the Democrats need to hold a mini convention in 2026, and they invite these people.
I agree.
And let us see them. Then we can evaluate the talent.
They should have done it if they'd done that in August, I think they could well have won the election. I agree with you.
Thank you. You and I are great minds. We're across the Atlantic. We think alike.
James Carville, brilliant to finally interview you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. I'll be in London here in March. I'm going to go see Ruthie at the River Cafe. So
love it. Let's do that. You know what? I would absolutely love to do that. That's a date. That'd be great.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Okay, I'll let you know.
That'd be great.
All right.
Take care, James. All the best.
Thank you.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.